We recognise that lymphatics is a unique way of shifting not just fluids, but emotion and everything. So it allows someone to, let's say, gracefully exit this world.
Welcome to the Quantum Lens podcast. And today I'm so honored to have Desiree, the CEO and founder of Medella Health, on the podcast. Welcome, Desiree.
Thank you for having me.
I met you a couple years ago, I believe, when I came across your FlowPresso device that you developed. And I remember the very first call that we had, we just hit it off. I just loved your energy and this amazing, amazing product that you have built that I've since purchased for my business. But I'd love for you to tell me your story of how you got into this business and why you got into it and how the idea came forth to develop this amazing FlowPresso product.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to say this. Stem back 20 years, I got into lymphatics. So I was kind of spellbound by the concept that we could shift fluids in the body and boost immunity. And I worked for about a good 10 years teaching, both in the United States and New Zealand, and but running a clinical practice predominantly in cancer. So someone would come to me, especially like post-breast cancer, obviously having mastectomy, lymphedema, but also like more in late-stage cancer, because we recognise that lymphatics is a unique way of shifting not just fluids, but emotion and everything. So it allows someone to, let's say, gracefully exit this world. And so I was teaching in the United States, and I'd been using a particular centre called the American Centre for Biological Medicine, where I was often doing my classes there. And there was a gentleman, an MD MD, Dr. Jeff Drobot, and he actually said, could you just not make us something? Because we're really struggling to get good practitioners that stick around, that, it's actually quite hard to find a well-certified lymphatic drainage therapist. So you can imagine my thinking at the time going, I'm a physician and a clinician and teacher, and how in the world could I make a product? Come on. And so I went back to New Zealand, and at the time I was running a clinic with an American, actually. He was an acupuncturist. We had like 13 staff, everything from massage through to psychologists, and we were both a bit worn out. And so we both sort of said to each other, do you think this is time? And we went, yeah. So we divided off and dissolved this big clinic that we had. And I literally became a mad scientist in a basement. Like some people used to go to me, oh my gosh, Desiree, like just if the world knew what you were doing right now, no one would believe it. It was in a basement. It was in the basement of our condo. I kind of grabbed tech from around the world. I was trying to see if there was something I could use or slightly enhance. And so that was a challenge. I couldn't, because, I've been in the lymphatic industry so long that I know there's a certain sequence that you had to do, otherwise you wouldn't engage the lymphatics to that degree. I think I kind of I had a prototype by about March 2019. I came over here because I had 3 people I wanted to share it with that I had known for a long time in the industry, one being Dr. Jeff. And I said, look, I'm leaving it with you. Let me know if I've got it, because they were really surprised at some of the results I was getting, which was in heart rate variability, and I'll talk on that soon. So I wasn't even leaving. I still remember this moment, but I was in Los Angeles going through customs, and Kelly Kennedy, who's known as the Lymph Queen, was sending me this video on a client that had had Lyme's for 25 years. And she was crying, and of course I'm standing there going, oh, what have I done? She was going, I've never felt this good for so long. I just feel safe and I feel light. And she was crying. So I'm in the middle of customs crying because I'm going, oh my God, I'm really making a difference. So, but with any tech development, it's never easy. And so the design wasn't great. Picture wasn't great. So I had to do an awful lot more work. But yeah, I launched in February 2020 to have my whole country locked down in March because of COVID. So that kind of created a bit of a pivot and a change for us. We had to sort of think on our feet, but because I already had prototypes there and the team over here knew about it. Sorry, I'm saying over here because I'm currently in the US, usually based in New Zealand. And we were able to start rolling out sales. But what it did give us an opportunity to do was when I was getting all this breakthrough information about heart rate variability. So we were switching people out of this fight, flight, and into this rest and repair. And of course, I had to really think, well, yes, when we move lymphatics, we do that. We do allow someone to fall into what I would call a parasympathetic state. But to be switching heart rate variability was massive. And so we had an incident in New Zealand and our AOS, which is like your SWAT, there was 4 involved and it was pretty traumatic for them. So local police health advisor asked if I could take one of them and just put them in the suit. I went, sure. And then I happened to say that I was about to look at a study because we'd already done it with a cardiac clinic. We'd monitored that we were changing sleep and stress. And so, of course, I think the next day I had 19 people signed up. So we started to see that we were lowering blood pressure, we were changing heart rate variability. And then next step was we went into a 135 candidate trial. And we did 5 different locations, 5 different practitioners, because anyone that knows research, if you put in as many variables as possible, the outcome's more likely to be realistic that you've achieved it. 1 session a week for 40 minutes, we found out that we were changing, so 1 week, 3 sessions total. We were changing sleep by 91%. We were changing stress by about 62 and anxiety by 53. So not only were we giving you this lymphatic drainage experience, we were what I call literally wrapping you up, loving you and hugging you and allowing you to feel safe and down-regulate. So we started to realize that we were giving the gift of deep pressure therapy. And that's when we started to understand why we were having these more significant results.
So for those who have never heard of FlowPresso, can you just describe what the suit looks like and what therapies it offers?
Yeah, so it can be a little bit off-putting to people. It looks like you're the Michelin Man or something because you put into all these separate pieces. So we wrap your feet. We've got leg pieces. We've got this torso piece, and then we've got a back piece, and then we've got the arms as well. So we kind of gently wrap you in it. It's to cover your body, so it's to fit you as the individual. And then we start delivering pressure and heat. Now, the pressure isn't a blood pressure cuff squeeze, it's a hug. We were asking for that feedback from you, and we're trying to adjust all the settings so it does feel significantly comfortable. It's like a full body massage, just to break it down. You're fully clothed, and it's designed specifically for you and what's going on with you. So we can adjust everything from making sure that, say, for example, the knee doesn't have as much pressure as the ankle. So it's, we're able to do all these different settings.
That's beautiful, right?
Yeah, so when you understand, so being in the lymph for so long, I think the problem that we do have usually in the health arena is we tend to isolate to one system and not think of the body as a whole. So the lymphatics is part of the circulatory system. So we're think of vascular, your blood flow, your nutrients, your oxygen coming into the tissue space. And it's often the leaking that goes on in the blood vessels or capillaries that is actually the problem for the lymphatics. Combining both with the heat, you're also improving blood flow. So you're creating a dilation, you're getting this flow of extra blood, extra nutrients into the tissue, and then it mobilizes the fluid. So it's starting to, you think about it like if you had a soup, very thick bone broth soup in your pot, and then you warm it up, right? And it starts being thinner and it's easier to drink, right? So that's the same what we're trying to achieve, so that we could get this whole circulatory system to work, because the lymph always ends back at the heart anyway.
Yeah, and what that makes me think of is with how much sitting we do nowadays, we're not doing as much movement as our ancestors did. So we have people who have swollen ankles at night and stuff like that because we're not moving as much. So this just kind of warms everything up and kind of makes that blood flow to all your organs and all your extremities, right?
Correct. Yeah, and that's And it is. It's probably one of the biggest issues we're seeing is the sedentary and working at desks all day. Like, it may not be that you're actually active, but you are spending 8 hours a day sitting at your desk working, which means, the fluid literally has to go uphill. It has to meet to the terminus to get to the blood. So when you're thinking about that, sorry, I've got the sun beaming in on me at the moment, so I can see reflections. So excuse me.
You're
I'm loving the
shining.
sun.
I love
I'm
it.
shining. So, it's really is about we need to mobilize. And it's not just that, it's the environment. We're exposed to significant more environmental issues than ever before from the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat. So, the lymphatics really has a tough time this day and age to try and remove all the byproduct that's in your body. So, it's kind of the Trojan horse trying to remove everything out. And that's why, your yoga is fantastic, your rebounding, all your different vibration plates. You think of moving it, and it's not always exercise because you may not incorporate every aspect of the body to get that lymph moving.
That's a really good example. And also, you have to open up your drainage pathways, correct?
Yes. So when in manual drainage, we always do what we call proximal to distal. So the first point of contact that lymph will meet with the blood is above the collarbone here, so in the terminus or termini. And so then you've got to think of if that's blocked, then nothing from down here up is really going to move through. Or if, for example, my axilla, which is my armpits, are blocked with fluid, then I'm not going to be able to drain the breast tissue. If there's this little valve sort of system that's called the cisterna chylis. It's like a reservoir that collects the proteins and fats from the small intestine, but also fluid from pretty much your waist down. If that's built up, then that means your fluid's not going to drain from your pelvic or your legs as well. So you start to understand that over time, and especially with illness, these particular areas do get compounded with build-up, and then everything is backed up. So a little bit like if you went to flush the toilet, but the major waste line was blocked and you couldn't actually flush the toilet, same analogy.
Yeah, I think in my practice, what I always tell people is it's like having a bucket of water and you want to keep draining the water because it's going to continue to get toxins in it. And if your bucket of water is overflowing with toxins, then they have nowhere to go. So there's a lot of different different things that we do and recommend to kind of get rid of these toxins out of the body. But this has become one of my favorite tools. And I would love for you to talk about the amount of time that you spend in the suit, but also the study that you guys did around the hugging and the touching and the, feeling like safe after you get out of the suit. Because I think what we've noticed is when somebody gets out of that suit, they have this beautiful look on their face. They feel so much lighter. I've had people that have had emotional releases in the suit. So could you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it would be fair to say with everything that's gone on in the last number of years, no one really feels safe at the moment. We're all wondering what's going to happen next. There's that kind of, I just got to be ready for the next thing. And, there's still so much going on politically and everything around the world. So you're kind of like you're a little bit on edge. And when we're on edge, the autonomic nervous system is going to live in a state of fight flight. And for some who've had compounding stress, goes into what we call the polyvagal system, which is that freeze or that fawn where you've just become able to just cope with life. So it's kind of like if we put you on a heart rate monitor, you'd be like, I'm just surviving, I'm just achieving. So when you put someone in the suit, there's this feeling of warmth, of being hugged. I've had some people tell me this must be what it's like in the embryo, like what it's like to actually be in the mother's belly, being held and warm. And then, like, if you look at autism or any sort of major anxiety, the minute you hold someone, and there was the woman that actually did the weighted blankets and the weighted vests and stuff, people down regulate. One of the most amazing things is to observe. And it was quite early on, so it sounds a bit weird, but as part of my research, I sit in a room and I observe. I'm watching people when their breath changes, when they start to snore, even though they often tell me they never slept. They feel so alert, but you hear them snoring. I mean, excuse me, personally, I've been I can hear myself snoring, but I'm really clear in my head what's going on around me. It's the bizarrest thing to be part of. But you started to see all of these changes, and probably the most profound story I had was I was working with a young boy with chronic fatigue, and there's a lot of research around the mother having a lot of trauma at the time of the pregnancy or at the delivery, and that there is a correlation. So we were working with this young boy. He had gone to school, he was only out of school 2 half mornings a week. It'd been like this for 2 years. No one was able to help him. And I just wanted to be able to understand, and this is really early on in the piece, what it did for changing. Because if you can change chronic fatigue, you know you're changing the way the autonomic nervous system functions. And so after a couple of sessions, he was out playing with his ball outside soccer. After a couple more, he wanted to be at school more. He was engaging more. He was up and about more. His mother was a physical therapist, so I'm sorry, you call them, what do you call them here? Like this, she did yoga and physical therapy, but not like as in a PT. I more mean as a trainer, as a physical trainer. And so
Okay, yep.
she had really struggled with her son not being able to recuperate. Like it was really hard for her to get her head around. So after 6 sessions, he was starting to show this some sort of normality again. And we're like, wow. So going by that research, I think I've got to get mum in because she's had to observe this change in her child for years, the trauma that goes with that. And what was profound is I put them in the same room, and at the time he was only getting like a 20-minute session, and she has the standard session as a 40-minute. And he was sitting there and he waited because he knew he had to wait till she finished. And I watched the whole time crying. She was just sobbing through the whole session. And she gets out and she leans over and she goes, I never realized how anxious I was. I never realized how stressed I was until this moment. And out of the mouths of babes, as we say in New Zealand, this boy comes up, rubs her back, and he goes, but Mum, this is what the flow does to us. It allows us to let go. So it was so beautiful. Even I was like crying.
Ugh.
But what I recognized then is that when we can give you a somatic experience where you're held, you're warm, and the compression is like flow of water. It's like it goes from your feet up your legs, it lifts your back up, and then it settles you down. So it's like being in a gentle wave. It's the only way to explain it. Is that what it's allowing is the body to become aware of where it's at. So it's a little bit like when you have a massage and you go, oh, I didn't realize it was really sore there. The same thing, you're getting that experience to let go, and you feel safe because you're warm and you're hugged, and it's a lovely cocoon that you're in. And so the body overrides the mind, because usually the mind overrides the body because we overthink things, we worry about stuff, etc. So it's all about a somatic experience. And if anyone's read the book, The Body Keeps the Score, they say it's so pivotal to give someone a somatic experience to overcome anxiety and stress.
And what's interesting is when you're in the suit and the experience starts, your body kind of is freaking out. It doesn't really, your mind is trying to rationalize what's going on. And I thought there is no way I'm going to be able to relax. I have been in fight or flight, what had felt like my whole life. And I got in that suit, and within minutes, just being able to relax. And what I think is I had an out of body experience. I was very aware of where I was, but I went somewhere completely out of this world. And when I came to, I felt, wow, I've never experienced anything like that, where I felt held. I felt safe. I felt like I got messages from God, the universe. It was such a unique experience. And what I kind of loved about it is, I wouldn't say I'm lazy. I would say I'm very efficient. Like I like to do, I liked it because when I go into something like somatic breath work, it feels like a lot of work to me. I have to sit there and breathe to have that kind of experience. But in the FlowPresso, I could kind of let go and relax and still get that same type of outcome as I would during a breathwork session.
Yeah. And I mean, in New Zealand, we call it the Wairoa. So the Wairoa is the word for two rivers. So one, the person that you're here and you've come into this world to be, but also the soul or the spiritual side. And so part of that is, so in New Zealand, we are more, our Indigenous Māori are quite more open to this, and they often share of having experiences out of the body or someone in the room with them that which they've loved to see for so long, or people will have what I call downloads. Like we get a lot of men that come in, per businessmen, and they like, I don't know what it is, but it comes through really easily when I'm in that suit. I just get the it, like they call it the it. It's so funny, and but they get the downloads, they get the clarity because when we went and did EEG testing, we saw brain waves happening, changing. So, when your brain is cleared and the clutter of the over talking, all of a sudden you get the messages, you get the clarity, and then you can. I mean, I remember one. She was a yoga. She said it was like doing Kundalini, but in a suit. Like she was saying, I just went off. She says, I think she remembers saying she was like surfing. It was like she was in a picture with beautiful waves and she was surfing through this. She said it was the bizarrest thing. But, I think it's an opportunity for you to let go. And I think in this day and age right now, getting that to occur gives you that kind of body reset. Like, I don't know if it was your age, but it was mine. We used to go Control Alt Delete on the computer, and it was like a full reset of your computer. It feels a little bit like that, and that's why people come out. We call it the flow look now. Like, they're just so like, wow, I feel lighter, I feel clearer. It's the most relaxed I've felt in ages. That is where it's so unique. And we get that in conferences. We can have someone for 10 minutes. There'll be hundreds of people around you. We'll put some headphones on. We cover your eyes so you get this real inner experience. Most of them fall asleep. And most of them come out going, wow, I cannot believe I literally fell asleep or I went somewhere in the middle of this chaos. And that's where the uniqueness of this product is.
And what else I find to be unique about this product is I find women are more likely to try things and whatnot. But with this product, like you can get a lot of men in this suit, and right, you're working with police officers and firefighters and people, all sorts of men who are also using this as an experience to help them get out of fight or flight mode.
Yeah, I remember I was here in the US, and I was at a fire station with a bunch of firefighters. We were putting them in, and one guy just came out and goes, wow, that actually feels like I've been hugged all over. So, we underestimate how much men are holding it together as well and being able to give them that experience. And they tend to go to sleep really quickly. They're usually snoring. Women tend to overthink everything. They're trying to work out what's going on. Oh, hang on, what about the grocery list? Or what about the kids? Should I be home? Oh my God, I'm looking after me. Should I be doing that? We do this whole, and it takes a bit longer for women. It tends to take them 20, 25 minutes of the 40 minutes, but most men are gone in 5. Once they're in the suit, they're like, love this, I'm gone. I'll lie back and relax.
So who would be the ideal candidate to get in the suit?
Right now, I'd say everyone.
Yeah.
I haven't met anyone that hasn't had some sort of like incredible experience in the sense of like, whether you're chronic with an illness or whether you just want to maintain good health, like whether you're really just knowing that your stress levels are up at the moment and you want to downregulate, but you want to move your lymph because I think I've met lots of sports people and their lymph has been almost as bad as chronic because because they're so into their sport, they're quite, there's a lot of rigidity in their bodies to make sure that they've got the muscle mass and then lymph gets trapped. So it's not uncommon to see it, but personally, who doesn't need to move their lymph and who doesn't need to regulate at the moment is probably where I would come back to.
And what do you look for when you partner with different practitioners and different clinics to put the suit into?
So we're a Class 2 medical device. We are a licensed practitioner now, so it's very specific to who we can partner with. That's because A, of the regulatory requirements of FDA, but B, I think there's a lot of power to this product that we can underestimate. And we really need to have clinical care, whereas other people tend to, they haven't got quite the awareness of, if, for example, if you did a session every day for 3 days, you will have quite a detox. You could also, like you said, have an emotional release and not know why. Like it's all this stuff that you really want a practitioner to be overseeing and supporting you just to ensure that you have got the ability to work through that in a effective but also less reactive way.
So, how many times do you recommend getting in the suit? And is it change from the beginning of your journey versus later on?
All our research is on 1 session a week, 3 up to 6. I found it, if I was to compare Americans to New Zealand, bearing in mind we're the bottom of the earth, where our air is still a bit purer, we don't even know what grass-fed beef is because all our beef is grass-fed. So we need to label that. We're still probably more closer to that organic lifestyle that compared to here. For me, I felt that, on average, I found most of Americans initially needed that. If they were dealing with some sort of, illness, weren't great at the time, around the 6 to 9 sessions. But that was one a week. And then you can go out to every other week or once a month. And it's just to keep that, to continually support the body to be able to either reframe it going into that reactive state of fight, flight again, or to ensure that the lymphatics was constantly working efficiently for you through day-to-day living.
I have to personally say, I use it once a week at this point, and it's my most sacred time of the week. I literally schedule it. I get in the suit myself, and that time is non-negotiable for me. It has become this really sacred practice of my self-care. I just encourage anyone who's, maybe looking for some type of way to do self-care but doesn't really know where to start, to seek out a FlowPresso practitioner near you. And Desiree, your guys' site you can search practitioners wherever you're at, right?
Yeah, FlowPressoUSA.com has got a location map, and we're putting them up all the time. We have quite a strict process where they've got to complete their training before we will actually allow them up on our website. So, but they're constantly going up all the time. So, and if not, you can always get hold of us and find out if there's one coming in the area, because obviously travel is an issue sometimes, and the US is a very big country.
Yeah. I'd love to know how you personally use FlowPresso and what you've learned in your own wellness journey through this technology.
So about 20 years ago, 15 or 20 years ago, I had a major electric shock. I was using with some technology that was faulty, and I went into pretty much living in a world where my heart was unable to regulate. So I was living at, my average heart rate was 100 resting. And my diaphragm from the shock it kind of hit me in the hand and came up and hit me actually on the left side in the chest wall. So I had, major diaphragm issues. And so, I had to go on a really long journey because it wasn't that simple in New Zealand. And I had to work out what to do and how to actually regulate. So it became a really fascinating thing for me. And then when I started working with cancer, and because I was working with cancer a lot, I could see that there was this dysregulation. And that when we did lymphatics, we could actually change things. So those became my real interested factors, but it wasn't until I was challenged to ask to create tech. And then to create it and see it happen was like, oh my gosh, this is like a miracle. Like to me, it was, I always say that my downloads, if you want to use that, I just knew what to do, and I can't even explain that. I mean, do you know how rare it is to have a woman in medtech? Like it is, I didn't realize. We've just been announced as one of 5 finalists as the Innovative Manufacturer of the Year in New Zealand. So we are, it's really not, I didn't know. So I mean, why would I have anything to reference against? So medtech, the field of that is quite rare. So I was going by my own insights, and then when I get into FlowPresso, like you, I have the most clarity and downloads. I get to understand, I get to work out why things are happening. I just get it's like you just come out knowing. I honestly believe that was my turning point. I've now got my heart rate down to 74. Resting, it's still not as good as I'd like, but it's a lot better than it was. And I put it down to that. It was the FlowPresso, and I once a week, like you. This last 6 months here, I've been trying to just go every other week because I'm trying not to rely on it, because what I find is it makes me feel so good. Then I work 90 miles an hour, which everyone says stop, because then I create work for everyone else. And I'm thinking, like, I'm already in the middle of another tech. I've already pushed out 3 consumables. I've got 2 other techs in the background waiting just to start on them. And, so plus new training units and all sorts of funny things. And they're just going, can you stop? Like, get out of that suit, because you just... So I use it for that, but I also use it for my lymph. I tell you what it is, it's a game changer for flying. So obviously New Zealand takes me about to the US 24 hours by the time I get here with layovers. And it instantly shuts down my jet lag and coming back. It's like of the day I fly in, I try to get it done that day, and then I'm just into the flight, into the date zone of where I'm at, and my body regulates. And that's been significantly phenomenal to learn for me because with, all the flying that I do. So, yeah, I still get in it to this day. And I will be absolutely honest, hand on heart. I come out going, oh my God, I can't get over how good that is. Like I'm just as much like yourself. I see it as a sacred place, and it is. It's better than I ever expected. Put it that way. I never thought it would have this much influence on people to the degree it does. And I'm not saying it's a cure. I'm just saying the influence of allowing someone to feel wrapped up, loved, and hugged. And in a time where we for so long were denied having contact with people, especially in New Zealand, and then to be able to down regulate your autonomic nervous system to feel like it can regulate again, and let alone get that lymph draining, the toxins out, your immune system boosted. You can see how it plays a beautiful part as an adjunct to any other therapy you're doing because you're kind of setting the terrain, you're setting the environment to allow you to be available to absorb, assimilate, and process what's coming to be able to overcome whatever challenge you're dealing with.
I love that you mentioned that so much because I have this protocol that I do when I fly somewhere and I travel quite often. I always go to the chiropractor before and after I get back. I never thought to get in the suit before and after, right? Because there's all these stresses before you go somewhere and when you get back. I mean, wow, Desiree, thank you. I'm going to add that to my travel protocol now. That's amazing. I'm so happy that you mentioned that. That's amazing. What do you think healing means to you on a physical, emotional, and energetic level?
I was always trained that you can't do one without the others. It's all interlinked. So the physical body tends to show the outcome of the emotional and spiritual. So that I always think that when the physical body is showing pain, there's been an emotional or spiritual dis-ease prior that has actually led to that. And I mean, there's like working in the cancer industry, I did a lot of study around that, and they were saying that cancer can often be in the body 7 years prior. Like we all have cancer cells, but the actual formation, and that usually it's a traumatic event or a spiritual event that shifts you into it actually turning into a tumor. And there was a guy called Dr. Hammer that did a whole lot of work on this, like 40,000 patients, and was able to identify, for example, if you had white breast cancer, what had gone on in your life in the previous 7 years that emotionally that would have impacted on its growth. Now, that's not to blame the situation. It was more that the trauma and the emotional impact and subsequent spiritual was causing the body to physically create it in a form that you now had to deal with. So I have known for a long time that one does not work without the other two. So, and that's where we also bring into New Zealand, we have what they call the Te Whare Tapawhā model, which is mind, body, spirit, but also whānau. So whānau means your family. Now, this is not necessarily biological. So the people you surround yourself is just as important because of the energetics of that and what that can bring to you for any healing journey. So we consider all four in our pillar of platforms to health.
I love that so much. I think also in the sense of quantum biology, if you ask multiple people in this field, they will all have a different definition of it. But the way that I like to describe it is, yes, we're working on your body, creating an environment for your body to be able to heal itself. But there's a mindfulness part of it and a spiritual component because I don't think that you can heal the physical body without doing some of that spiritual growth and mind work as well, that emotional work.
I agree totally. And that's how I was trained from very early on to always consider that. And, it's, so we call it, the woo woo. just to make it light. And, I think it's become more accepted. Science is showing you, people like Joe Dispenza is teaching us about what you think you create. There's all these amazing people bringing science to this philosophy. It's becoming less unaccepted because they're starting to be able to show. I mean, I've even from an oncology point of view, they've shown that if an oncologist gives someone a date, like tells them that they're
Yes.
terminal and this is the date, they will die on that date unless they've got the mindset and capability to say, you will not label me. And so, I think people underestimate how much a word or the energy behind the word can actually impact you as much as what the physical ailment can.
I had someone in my practice who's working through cancer, and she said when she was in the doctor's office, as soon as she heard the C word, we call it, she said, I'm out of here. And she walked out and she said, I refuse to hear how long do I have? All these things. I know my body really well. I know that my body can heal. And she just said, I refuse to listen to whatever diagnosis the doctor is going to give me. And I think that is so powerful. Have you heard
Yeah,
of Joe Dispenza's mind movies?
yeah, very powerful.
I just came
Very
across
powerful.
those, and I'm like a visual board person. January 1st, I'm putting my vision board together and whatnot. And then I saw these mind movies and I thought, oh, wow, you're literally creating a little movie of your life, and you're putting that energy into what you want your life to look like. And you're watching this movie, 2 minute movie that you can make on Canva. I mean, you guys can Google it, go on YouTube, so many different ways that you could create this little mind movie. But that is something I came across this year that has been super impactful. It's like, if you can see it, you can build that life. And it has been super impactful for me personally.
I went to his 2-day workshop, the only one he's ever done in New Zealand, in that 2019 year. And that's exactly what I did. Because I was told that in technology it takes at least 2 years to do a prototype and then probably another 2 years to actually put it into market. And I went, I think I can do that differently. So I did his meditations every morning and I did a mind movie. And it ended up totaling, this was 6 months prior to launch. And then I launched obviously 6 months later, and it was only 1.5 years total that I had done. So you can, I think we underestimate that what we think we create. It's just like, the same what we eat, we are, right? All of it's entwined. And when I want to get focused, my thing is really to really get clear on what I'm trying to transmit or transmute or create so that I'm holding that energy all the way through. Because when you stop, that's when the world, I did that last year, I got caught up in the corporate world of having a big company and managing things like, things like SOPs and KPIs and, SWOT analysis and people. And it was like, and it all became about the selling, not about the vision of what we came to do here with this product. And I watched myself health deteriorate. I watched my team shift. And it was a big wake up call for me. And then I pulled myself back in late last year, and I just really came back to that again. Why was I here? What was my vision? What did I want to achieve for the world? What difference did I want to make? And honestly, it's been really interesting to observe the ripple, because it's not just me. It was me that had to get me right, but then the ripple down through my team, how that made them all start to shift and change in their own way that they are. And, so we underestimate even how we are is impacting our whānau or other family that we have around us.
Yeah. And I think it's our divine right, or kind of divine sense, to come into this world to be creators. And I think sometimes when we pull away from that divinity, our bodies and our worlds kind of reflect that, right? You kind of get off course a little bit. And for me personally, especially being a business owner as well, is I sometimes get into my masculine of the do, do, do. And I have to bring myself back to my feminine energy to harmonize these two masculine and feminine energies, because I feel like as a mother, as a business owner, as a wife, I want to be in my feminine energy. I want to be in the flow and my creativity. And sometimes you kind of get away from that a little bit with all the things
Yeah.
that we have to do.
Well, and society's kind of pushed it as well. So, I mean, I remember going to conferences and, women being out celebrating that they were just about broken because they'd worked so hard. And I'm like, wow, this has to change. We don't need to be broken to achieve great things. And I think you're seeing more and more collaboration, which is great. Like more and more people are coming together to support the greater good rather than trying to do it individually, it's tiring, it's tough when you're being put on a mission where you're trying to make a difference. But when you start to build that collective community, all of a sudden it just becomes so much easier. And then your heart lights up because you're around people holding what I call the same vibration. So,
Yes.
for me, it really is important that we do start to see how, like you said, get in the male energy, the do, rather than what we call the female energy, which is the be aware of it, project it, create the energy around it, put the heart behind it. Because for us to go to the wider, to go to the spirit of who you are, you must go through the heart. So the heart of who you are, not the heart of what society defined you or made you. It's actually who am I, who do I want to be, and what's the difference I want to make in the world. And that can be anything. I mean, I've gone into like a supermarket and I've been with a female that's been like blowing me away with her service and her happiness she lights you up. That is just as important in this world as, a big CEO running a big corporate business. Like, I think we need it all, but it's coming from that. I'm really happy with who I am. I'm really happy with what I'm doing. And when we're in that place, we go really fast and great things happen really quickly. And so coming back to your point, if we're off living in a doing phase, we're missing all that other beautiful stuff that can actually allow it to flow more efficiently than fight to get to it.
Yeah, be the light. Be the light in this world. I love that. And
Yeah.
then let go and let God. That's what I always say.
Yeah, the letting go can be challenging, but it's worth it.
I guess one kind of wrapping up question before we get to our final question is, where do you see health and wellness going in the future?
I think we're going to see quite a shift. Like, I know you've got your maha thing coming about, which would be amazing if that sort of comes into play, like getting back to the basics of good food, healthy environments, those kind of things. But what I do see is that the shift in way we work with people will change. So you're going to see probably more in, for example, the energetics, more liquid form, or things like homeopathics or stuff like that. Because if anyone's into astrology, we've come into this Aquarian age, and that's what the frequency of all that is. It's all about frequency. It's all about vibration. So whatever that looks like. So I think we're going to start over the next couple of years, see a different approach to how we manage health, and maybe go back, I hope, to looking at you as a whole rather than just one part of your body that we're trying to fix, because it doesn't work. I mean, I'm trained in the Eastern philosophy, so it's like you've got to look at someone as a whole to see the full imbalance to create balance again. Otherwise, you're missing so much important information into their growth. So that's what I see is coming, and certainly hope it does to the degree that I'm sort of putting out there it does, because I think it will be profound for people to be able to come back to really trusting themselves too, like taking their health back and owning it and controlling it and managing it, but feeling empowered to do that. And that's where we'll see a massive shift.
I don't know if I've ever shared this story with you, but I'm feeling called to share it. When I was first pregnant with my first daughter, I knew something was wrong because I kept going into labor even at 3, 4, 5 months. I kept going to the ER at night. I kept telling them that I was having amniotic fluid leaking. And they said to me, "You're just peeing yourself." And they were trying to convince me that I didn't know my body. And I knew my body really well. I knew that it wasn't urine. So I would go into the emergency room once a month. They would stop the labor. They would flood my system with fluids, stop the labor. Next month, same thing would happen. Well, in the US, they don't really do ultrasounds after like the first 2, 3 months. And here we are, I was like 7 or 8 months pregnant in the emergency room again. And I was like, I am not leaving here. There was this voice that told me, stand up for yourself because they're trying to tell you you're a first time mom. You don't know what you're talking about. You've never had a baby before. And I was like, I'm not leaving this hospital until you figure out what's going on. Turns out I had been leaking amniotic fluid the whole time, so much so that my baby had barely any amniotic fluid. I was literally rushed to the surgery center to give birth to that baby because my baby might have not survived. And she was born early. And I'm so glad that I had the wherewithal to like stand up for myself and say, I'm not leaving until you guys figure this out. And yet, something really horrible could have happened had I not stood up for myself and trusted my intuition. And I think at the end of the day, that gave me the confidence to kind of stand up and be my own healthcare advocate, because I think it's so important nowadays, especially when you're in this like emotional state. I always tell people, bring someone with you to an appointment. If something's going on and you need that emotional support, I think it's really important to have a healthcare advocate with you that can also help to ask questions, remind you of the conversation that you had. Because a lot of times when you're in these highly emotional states, it's kind of hard to think clearly too. But I think we're going to see this revolution of people kind of speaking up against the norm and saying, okay, I want to question this, or I want to dive deeper into this topic before just doing whatever the doctors say and going along with the treatment options that they're proposing.
Yeah, I agree. And people, you can see they're searching Google, really intelligent questions now. And yeah, I'm a big believer you have someone there with you during a journey, or record it or something, so you
Yes.
can actually go back to listen. But really trusting that intuition. I think we underestimate, how much we know something's not right, and then we downplay it and we don't act on it fast enough. And I've met many people that didn't listen, and the cost to that, and then the ones I've met that did listen, outcomes of that. So it does pay to try to understand, or find someone that can help you learn to understand. But don't underestimate your own feeling on something, because they say, well, what is it they say with breast cancer? Most women find the breast cancer, or their partner does, so they statistically way more than what mammograms do, so, or ultrasounds, or whatever you opt. So someone knows their body. You're touching it every day, showering. I mean, it's just like, I think we underestimate the power of that. And that's what I want to really help, encourage people, is to come back to, how do I feel? And is there something out of sync that I need to address? Because the sooner you act on it, that prevention is better than cure. There's a better chance of that, you'll continue having great health. But yeah, well, but knowing what you did, it was profound. And I think you never go back from that. But like with me and my journeys, I've just known and been able to get something confirmed and just never gone back. Like, I trust now myself. I trust when something doesn't feel right, I get onto it. I mean, I'm also the crazy person. I can break an ankle and wait 2 days before I go to to go and get it. I know I've broken it, so I've got to get the swelling down for them to get the clear X-ray, right? So, I mean, I just know, I know what I've done. I mean, that's a silly thing, but you tend to become more trustworthy of your own self. And, if anyone's listening right now that's felt off about something, and never got the answers, pursue them, because you do know. On some vibrational level, even if you're not finding it physically, that something's off. And if you capture it at that point, you were given a sign to get in and deal with it very quickly to be effective. If we tend to ignore it, which I think happens a lot because we're so busy, that's when the problems unravel.
I love that you said that, because when I had melanoma, which I found by myself, by the way, I'd seen a dermatologist 2 times a year since the age of 12 when I first had skin cancer. And I remember I went to the dermatologist and I said, "This spot doesn't look right on my leg." And she looked at it and she said, "This isn't cancerous. It's totally fine. We'll take a biopsy just because you're wanting me to." But she's like, "It's totally fine." And then I get that call of come in next morning at 7 a.m. and it was melanoma. I was so confused because she literally, when she was biopsying it, was telling me, this is not cancer. It's fine. So thankfully, I listened to myself and I was like, that doesn't look right. So if you look at something or feel something in your body and you say that doesn't look right, follow that intuition, follow that guidance.
Definitely.
So where can people find you? How can they follow you? How can they connect with you?
I have an Instagram account under my name, my personal name, obviously, and then we've obviously got FlowPressoUSA.com. So you can find that on Instagram. We have a great selection of we're adding to all the time self-care tools for lymphatics, and that's flow_at home, I believe it is, on Instagram, so you can learn how to use them. So, or we've got our website, FlowPressoUSA.com. So, and I have a Lymphatic Insights podcast now. I've started just to really work with different people in the industry to raise the awareness on lymphatics. I think it's the most understood, like less understood system of the body, and we don't put enough recognition to it. So, it's how to talk to some different levels, even right down to an oncologist that admits that they never got any training. So, for another area that people can learn from as well.
I love that. And I always end every single podcast with the same question because I love all the different types of answers that I get. And that is, what does love mean to you?
I think first and foremost to myself, I have to love myself first before I can really love truly others, because otherwise we don't fill the tank up. And that was a big lesson I had to learn, especially when I got the hit in the heart. It was like the electric shock. I saw that as a bolt into my heart. I had to really see within. So love to me is first and foremost finding that within myself, and then the radiating of that, so how that impacts on the people that you bring to you. And I think it's a loaded word, because I can love you, for example, I can love my husband, I can love my children. There's different levels of love. So for me, love is what we call in New Zealand araha. So araha is very much about encompassing the greatness of love, no matter who you're with, that you're always coming from a place of frequency, that you are generating and giving love unconditionally to those around you.
I love that. And even sending love to other people remotely, we do that as a little sunrise practice with our family. Is we set an intention for the day and we say, who can we send love to this morning? And I love that you said that because it's just a frequency. Energetically, you can send love remotely as well.
Yeah, it's the greatest gift you can give anyone. And when we come together collectively as a group and you work on healing, we're working on there's a group of us with a girlfriend of mine who has been given a C, but it's quite significant. And, we all get together and and we're all in our homes, we're not together physically. And we're doing exactly that so that we can raise her frequency to fight this. It's profound. And we've seen it time and time again with different groups around the world, collectively, even if it's just sending love to the world right now. There's someone out there that needs that.
Yes, absolutely. I loved this conversation so much, Desiree. Thank you for your time and for the blessing that you're giving us with your message and this tool that we have now in this world. We're going to have a FlowPresso device at the Return to Nature 2025 retreat in Franklin, Tennessee, June 26th and 27th. So people can get in this suit and feel what it feels like to have this amazing, beautiful experience. And again, look for info on that at www.carriebwellness.com/retreat. retreat, or otherwise go to the FlowPresso website and find a practitioner near you to try this out. Thank you so much, Desiree. We really appreciate having you on today.
Well, it's lovely to be part of it, and all the best to everyone, and sending araha.
Thank you for tuning in to the Quantum Lens podcast. I hope this episode brought you insight, inspiration, and a deeper connection to your journey. If you've loved what you heard, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Let's keep this conversation going. And until next time, keep aligning, expanding, and embrace the magic of who you are.